We are discussing Scrum Master related interview question. I guess there could be some project management also in between. Let's see. And we have a volunteer and she's willing to talk about her interview experience. And I hope that will help all of us in learning something new. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So, hi Sakit. I recently faced an interview and I've been following your videos for almost last 3, 4 years. And I have around 5+ years of experience as a Scrum Master and overall around 14 years of experience. So, your videos have always helped me. Till date, I have never ever been rejected from a single interview. But 2 days before, I felt the interview was pretty simple. I mean, it was a basic conversation, and the time they had scheduled also was for 30 minutes only. But when I got rejected for that interview, I mean, of course, we didn't discuss this kind of questions earlier. But when we are following your videos and we are working for 5 years, right? I mean, we know the mindset of the Scrum Master kind of thing. So based on that only, I answered. But then I wanted to know where I went wrong. That's why I want to discuss with you.
Sure, sure. So we can definitely explore questions, and interviews are a little tricky. We don't know what exactly the person wants to hear. And then right now the environment is little challenging. So maybe it's about a fitment. Yeah. But anyway, we can do whatever is under our control. We don't know what was going on in the other side. So we can still think about improving and reflecting on what kind of questions we should be handling differently. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So basically, in my profile, I had mentioned that, I had worked on different domains and cross-functional teams across the globe. So when I was giving my introduction, like say, introduce yourself. So when I gave an introduction, so they picked up this point, from the, resume, and they just asked me like, which domain did you like the most? So I know this is not related to Scrum, but then I just replied saying that, there is nothing as, what I liked. Every domain has their own, positive points. And I have worked on insurance, healthcare, and uh, banking and financial. And everywhere, wherever I worked, I had a new learning curve. Fortunately, I got to work on the banking financial for a longer period. So I am little more confident on certain areas on the BFS side. But from the healthcare and insurance also, my learning curve has been good. And whichever domain, I am given in future, I think it will always be a learning curve. And I'll always learn something new and try to apply it in my future projects. So that's what I told them.
So
So
it's like good, but at the same time, it is little political answer as well, which is right thing to do because we are not making something very obvious. What you could do differently, like if you are reflecting, if you have to answer this question again, what you will answer now?
actually, the interview was from a telecom domain organization.
Hmm.
So probably I would have, if asked, probably apart from answering this, I should have answered something, focusing on their domain as well, which would have
Hmm.
showed my interest on their domain, specifically at this point of time. But
Perfect.
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so I think that's the best guess we can make. So whatever is the client's domain, it is, and we can also pick up some of the overlapping elements. So, for example, you probably study that, oh, I have worked into these three, four areas, but these areas may be overlapping with telecom. So, say working with compliance, working with complex technology, working with specialized team, which might be a case in telecom sector. So I can bring those ideas. Yeah, if again this is one of the case, it is already gone maybe. Yeah, but if I have to answer these kind of things again, then I probably try to show the understanding of the place where I'm giving an interview, and I'm trying to find out what is my current experience and where it touches the client area, and I try to show more interest in learning or towards those areas which are touching the client aspects. Yeah, so probably I don't show much interest in BFSI. Yeah, if my client is not BFSI, so That's something I can probably do. But again, this is just a one thing. I don't think they will just make a decision based on one answer. But yeah, they are probably looking for someone who has experience in telecom or someone, because nowadays choices are many. So that kind of consideration might be there.
Yeah, maybe. So after this, the next question was like, which sprint ceremonies do you do as a Scrum Master? So I mentioned all the sprint ceremonies, right from our backlog refinement to sprint planning, daily stand up, sprint review, and the retrospective. And after that, for each of the ceremonies, I mentioned, a few lines based on how I contribute as a Scrum Master. For example, in the backlog refinement, like, how I am working with the product owner, or how I am facilitating, and how we are discussing, how the team is discussing, and where my contribution is in the backlog refinement. Then in the planning, how I'm facilitating the planning meeting, how team is estimating, but I make sure, that I help them to come to a consensus, when there is a difference of opinion, and if everybody has, understood the requirement well, and
Mhm.
where the team is in alignment. So that also I mentioned. Then in daily
Mhm.
stand up, how team discusses about their progress towards the sprint goal. It's not only about what they're going to do today, or what they did yesterday, but it also helps us in understanding as a team where we, stand, looking into our electronic board, and to give understanding of the entire team, to have kind of collaboration with each other inside the team. And at the same time, whenever there are impediments, a team brings it up. I also mentioned that, the impediment discussion is not limited to the status call. It also, depends on the criticality. So the impediment information that has to be coming to the Scrum Master, I have made my team in such a way, made them self organizing in such a way, and accountable in such a way, that they can come up and we can discuss about any critical impediments even without the status call as well. But as part of the status call, we do discuss this. And if there is anything that needs to be further discussed, we have certain follow up calls, but that is not part of my Scrum ceremony. And finally, we have the review and the retrospective. So in review, usually I have made sure that, not a single point of contact, or myself, or the lead of the team is giving the review to the stakeholder. I make sure, that my team is feeling empowered and confident. So they kind of, whoever has done the work, they kind of give the walkthrough of the, or the demo that they have. And whatever feedback we get from the stakeholders, even if it is an appreciation or whatsoever, the person who has actually put the effort gets that acknowledgement. And whatever feedback we get, we make sure that if it has to be there as part of a new requirement or an additional thing, it goes back to the product backlog, and we update the backlog, there. And further we refine it at a later point of time and decide when we are going to take it up. But as part of the review, this is what happens. And in the retrospective, again, it depends, like, what kind of retrospective we are having. So usually if it is a mature team, we don't do much of an icebreaker, because I have the team knowing each other for a long time. So we directly, give some time for the team to come up, and we have casual discussions for a couple of minutes. Then we usually follow, some of those techniques, like what went well, what did not, or what we want to improve, or probably, like the award ceremonies and things like that, which was a good user story for you, which was that you enjoyed more, which one you did not enjoy more, which one was, challenging. So with these things, I make sure that the team, everybody speaks in the team, everybody feels important in the team. Then we might have to update our definition of done based on this discussion. And the team also talks about any changes that they want to, do. Then if it has to go to the future product backlog, we do that. And then we take up some action items from the previous sprint, from the previous sprint retrospective, and look into it, whether those has been taken care of. And we kind of do a dot voting for the new items that we have recognized, to understand whether which ones are the priorities that has to be looked into as part of the next sprint immediately from this retrospective. and based on that, we take up the action items and decide like who is going to take up those action items, or whether it is going to go as part of another story into the backlog. So that's what I explained, but I'm not too sure whether they were convinced with this.
Okay, so what was the follow-up question? Like, what do you see
uh,
that? Yeah.
so actually when I said this, the follow up question was related to estimation. So they just broke this chain.
Okay, okay. So they were not taking it forward. So I think, see, what you have explained is you have explained a typical role of the Scrum Master and what are the good things Scrum Master should do. Yeah, that's something you have explained. Yeah. Now, what could be done differently if that seems to be the case? I try to bring as much as customization as possible, and I talk about what do I do in my current team. So I focus on, my team has three people sitting in that country, five people sitting in that place, and this is how we are. Current working agreement was earlier. I used to facilitate daily stand up. Now I don't do anymore. In a retro, we used to have specific tools, but now we are not doing it. We use this board. So maybe I just try to prepare these answer by bringing more and more customization, talking about the product which we are working on. Yeah, I talk about the feature stories coming from there. They talk about the recent releases we make. So it becomes more and more say something experience sharing rather than what a typical Scrum Master should do. Yeah, that is something a possible improvement, but looks like interviewer just wanted to understand that do you understand role of a Scrum Master and what is your understanding of a typical Scrum, and if that was the goal, then they got it. Yeah, they probably learned that yeah, you know how what is Scrum.
So in this kind of situation, like whatever answer I gave, your suggestion is like along with the typical answers, I should add a few more flavors of my recent project where, how I'm doing a little differently to give a more
Perfect.
specific thing, like the
Yes.
generic one as well as the actual one that I'm doing,
Yeah.
right?
So thing is that whenever I am giving interview, I don't want to sound like I am giving a Scrum exam, or I don't want to sound like that I am just explaining roles and responsibility of a Scrum Master. I should be sounding more like I am explaining roles and responsibility of mine in a given context. So when they say what kind of ceremonies you facilitate, I don't have to think like the question is what the ceremony Scrum Master should facilitate. No, I should probably think like what do I do in my current company and what kind of facilitation is done always by me, what kind of facilitation can be done by the other team members, and how do we do differently. So we may have some extra meetings which are not there in Scrum. Yeah, maybe we do that, or maybe we have done some customization for our existing meetings. But I talk about this is what I do in a current project which we are running from last 1 year. In the earlier one, I used to do little differently, but our Scrum processes has matured, and this is how we are doing it. So you take the answer to a next level, which shows the depth of the experience rather than awareness of what is Scrum Master is expected to do. Yeah. So, for example, you talk about working agreement. You talk about that how the digital content is used in order to support your daily stand up. You probably talk about your Slack group or whatever communication channels you have, other than just talking about daily stand up. You can say, yeah, whenever people have an issue and they want to discuss with something, since we are a distributed team, now that's a flavor you are bringing in. They can put it into the Slack channel or in our WhatsApp group, whatever channel you have. When I'm hearing your answer, I feel that it is a purely co-located team where people are pretty much together and they do all these meetings all the time. Yeah, that's what I feel. Yeah, if that is not the case, then those answers will not fit well.
Yeah, yeah, got it. No, mine is not a co-located team. It's a distributed team. So I think, yes, I got your point. So along with explaining, I should also mention like, what exactly I am doing at the current situation.
Yeah, and maybe a time zone difference. So, how do you facilitate? How do you probably take care of working agreements or something like that? Else, it just looks like okay, it's a typical case. People are sitting together and they do all these meetings and they have a backlog. They do dot voting and they move forward. Now, dot voting in a distributed manner is a different game. You may do a poll. Yeah, you rather than saying
Yeah.
we may do a poll in our Slack channel or a WhatsApp group or in our Zoom, whatever it is. Yeah. So it brings little bit real story. So it makes little answer specific. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I made a mistake now that I listened to you, that I should have mentioned about these tools, like, because we are using Mural for our retrospective. So we are using the
Mhm.
dot voting over there. So
Mhm.
probably if I would have mentioned the tool name and, something of that sort, it would have given a more realistic view that, okay, this kind of fits into her distributed team answer.
Perfect. Yeah. So the thing like interviewer. So interviewer is hearing this answer. Now some interviewer might be proactive. They may ask follow-up question to really dig in your experience. So there is a possibility somebody will say, okay, I understand, but can you a little bit tell me more about how do you do rote voting? Yeah. So there is a possibility person can ask, and then you can explain. You have a real thing. There is a possibility the interviewer is talking to many people, maybe want to move forward to next, and they may make a perception that okay, this person understands scrum, but okay, they have a theoretical knowledge or they have a practical knowledge. Now we are relying on their interpretation. We don't know because we have not done any follow up conversation on that matter. Yeah, if we had a follow up conversation, hopefully you have clarified it, but since it's moved forward, so my chance is that I try to bring as specific as possible, so it doesn't look like that some scrum master is teaching or just speaking what typical scrum master is expected to do.
Yeah, got you, Saket. So actually, the interview was scheduled just for 30 minutes. So I
Mhm.
was like, thought in under the impression that if they asked it, they might not have expected so much of explanation, which I already
Mhm.
did.
Mhm.
So maybe that mindset I should have left, and I should not have looked into the time rather than looked into my answer more.
Mhm. And then think of making it crisp. So you can say for example, if I have to a time bound, so sometime I can also say that these are the 4 ceremonies we do, and let me take one ceremony as an example. So I give you a little preview about how we do it in our team. Yeah. So you are not explaining everything what I do here. I just list down those things, and I only focus on one specific one, and then I shorten the answer, and I let if you want me to explain the other ceremonies also the way we do it in our team, I can do it, but you always think of the person wants to know how you do it rather than how scrum master expected to do it, how scrum expected to run. That is more like a theoretical answer. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Got you. Yeah, thank you. So the next question was like, if there is a situation that the entire team is unaware of a technical requirement, then how do you do the estimate? So because say for example there is a requirement which the team is not aware of, and you are scrum master who's also not into technical things. So if you have to do an estimate, like how does your team do it, and how do you facilitate this kind of a meeting where you also don't have much knowledge? So I just mentioned, so have you faced this kind of situation? Basically, they asked me directly. So I just said, I have not faced it directly in an existing project, but when there was a case when I have joined the project new and I had only 3 members in the team and the remaining members were not there. So that time the requirement was not very clear to the team, and the customers knew what they wanted, but they were not very sure of the solutioning part, how they wanted it. So we had to come up with some kind of high level estimate to understand how many more people we need in the team, or how much time it is going to take us for doing that particular piece of work. So that is when, I kind of collaborated with my delivery manager and identified few subject matter experts on that area, and we had a discussion together to identify the requirements. For that, me, the SMEs, and the stakeholders had rigorous meetings to understand their requirement, and based on that, the subject matter experts came up, with some solutioning, and the team, whoever was already existing that time, they were also part of those discussions, and finally we came into an agreement, and based on that we did some high level estimates, and then we identified, okay, this is probably going to take this much of time, and from there, since we informed the customer, they were okay with it, and they decided to have a POC done first on that area. So if the POC worked, because as I said, they were also not too sure on which approach to take. So since the if the POC worked, they would be, going forward with the remaining piece of work, that I mean the entire application or whatsoever. So this was one question, and I had a follow-up question for this once I answered this.
So this is looking okay to me. What do you think about this answer?
Yeah, even I felt it was okay, because this was
Maybe the
seriously what
follow-up
happened.
answer will help you in understanding what they thought about the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I could not think of anything more to this, because this is what I actually faced, and it was a real scenario only which I gave. So I was not very sure if any other refinement had to be done to this particular answer, because honestly I didn't know what else to say for this.
Mhm.
And to this, one of them just asked a follow-up question, like, what if the SMEs who are contributing for the estimates are in a conflict of opinion, right? Whatever solution they are giving. So how do you handle that situation? So for this, I just mentioned that, see, as I mentioned, that the customer themselves were not very sure of which approach to take. And that is why we were in continuous discussion along with the SMEs and the stakeholders. So if there is a situation where both the SMEs are having a difference of opinion, both of them might already are subject matter experts, means having a huge knowledge of solutioning. So both might be having some reasonable justification behind choosing their approaches, and they might be good as well. But whether it fitted my project or not is something had to be cross verified. So based on my understanding, we will have a discussion along with the stakeholder, and then multiple other factors will come into picture, like which one is having more uh, you know cost saving, or which one is requiring how many number of resources, or probably which one will be having a faster delivery, which one might have certain tools which the customer already is holding a license of. So there are various factors which might come into play. There is nothing, as in when we consider both the SMEs, there's nothing like who is right or who is wrong. It's just that which one is a better fitment for my customers cost and efficiency and everything. And we will have a discussion together, considering all these factors, and whichever solution fits better, I think the other SME, if whoever's approach is not being considered, will also be not in a conflicting mode, but they will also understand after end of the discussion why we went ahead with a certain solution and not that one. So that's what I said, Saket.
So this looks good, all good. Yeah, just we can say we can have a multi-criteria decision making. We can have a specific criteria. In our case, our project objective was lifetime cost, easy to maintain. Yeah, we were having it. Anyway, even if we were not having conflict, we were using those criteria for making decisions related to technical approaches. But I think the follow-up question looks like digging more into the answer you gave, so which shows a little positive. Yeah, it shows that yes, they were understanding that you have a approach to handle it. And then they give you a specific condition. Then you brought the idea of collaborative way of handling conflicts. You brought the idea of multi-criteria decision making, and making people rationally understand which solution is right and wrong. That seems to be good. Yeah, good way to do. And you spoke about overall uncertainty in the estimate. You spoke about running spikes or POCs initially and refining those estimates as we go along. Continuously keep updating our understanding. And if the understanding is less, we have a high level estimate, which means the error could be high. So we be upfront with our stakeholders about those errors. And then once we have a better understanding, we refine it. And since my team is unable to do it, I take experts' opinion. That's a good idea. We can use some historical data. That could be a good idea. Or we can just run an experiment and then say we will estimate. That also a good idea. But again, it has to match with the story which you are telling. So you had this. To me, it looks good.
Yeah, actually, this was an actual situation, so I didn't have to, make up much stories about it. So I
Yeah.
was able to answer this well. But the next question was my last question in the interview. As I said, the time was very less. So they just mentioned, like, suddenly they jumped into another thing, like you are in the middle of the sprint, and due to whatsoever reason, your developer suddenly comes back to you, and probably 5 days have passed, and suddenly they just come back to you, and they just say that uh, we I am not able to deliver this anymore. There is a problem, and you can go and tell the stakeholder that this will not be delivered. uh, Actually, there was one more question after this. I'll tell after that. But then to this one, I just mentioned that, see, when the developer comes and says suddenly after 5 days, that is something alarming, because me as a Scrum Master, we are having daily collaboration with the team, we are having daily stand-ups with the team. So if it is something that the developer interpreted that he will might not be able to complete it, then I should have got this, even before after the 5 days completion. But assuming this scenario, if this is happening in a case, hypothetical situation as you are explaining, then I would say that, first thing is I need to talk to the developer to understand why he's feeling that it will not be completed, whether it is something that we had anticipated as a smaller piece of work, and now it after he started working on it, he realizes it is much more work that involves. Then probably we it is something that we need to fix it in future, how we are doing our backlog refinement or our planning and our estimation, because it shows a lack of understanding of the requirement and proper estimation. And for the current situation, maybe my fix would be, I will probably talk to the product owner, because as you say, we need to deliver for sure. Then probably in the current situation, I will have to talk to my product owner or whoever is the stakeholder, whoever has given me the requirement in the situation, bring that transparency into it, and try to talk to him and see if we can reprioritize certain work from the other developers of the sprint without changing the sprint goal, and maybe allow one or two more developers to work with the current developer to speed up the work and get it delivered in the remaining days that we have for the sprint. There can also be another scenario where, in this situation, that the developer did understand the requirement and he estimated it well, but there might be some other dependency to it, like some dependency to another team or something, and we did not anticipate that this dependency would be a blocker, but after 5 days maybe that is creating a blockage. So if that is the case, again I have to use my collaboration and transparency thing into the team. I need to understand that the blocker is with which team, talk to the respective project manager or scrum master of the team, bring my PO or stakeholder into the picture to, if they are not getting convinced, and see how best we can resolve this issue to get this done on time. If there is a situation that it cannot be done on time, in that case also I need to make sure that all the management, the internal as well as the external stakeholders, are informed it as a risk, and we have certain discussion to identify a mitigation plan. So I just told him, see, there can be multiple scenarios, but I mean, first case I will not have it, because I'm always having a transparent discussion on a daily basis. But if there might be different scenario, and here I just explained to you two of those scenarios. So that was my answer.
Mhm. So, what do you think is you need to do differently if you have to answer this question again?
I'm not too sure, Saket. I mean, nothing else was coming to my mind later also when I was thinking about this question. I mean, what I think could have been done is, maximum I could have brought in one or two more scenario, but just adding scenarios, I'm not too sure if that would have convinced them.
So first is that you need to reduce the size of your answer. Maybe, yeah, it was maybe long answer. So you need to probably find a short answer. So you finish the conversation as soon as possible so that they have time to ask follow up. Means when you answer something, try to not to speak more than a minute or minute and a half, and take a pause, and if they want to continue in this direction, then you continue as you take a second one. That's a possible general possible technique which can work in any interview, so that we really know what they want to ask, because time is limited. That's a possibility. Second thing which I see here is that the complete perspective of team can be added, because someone is saying it is difficult for me, but you are not technical expert. You trying to understand what is going wrong, and then you are deciding what should we do about it, is just relying on one person input, and you are just becoming a messenger between a person and the stakeholder. So where the technical exploration, where are the alternative scenarios? Now you talk about alternative scenarios. We can make two developers work here and this. Who is exploring those alternative scenarios? So you as a enabler, project manager, scrum master may not have that expertise to explore those alternative scenarios. So if we have a technical challenge, the technical challenge has to be addressed by the people who are expert in that area. Now, in the answer, I can think of involving those experts. Yeah. So probably I can have a little ad hoc meeting with some of the key developers, yeah, if that is needed, and we can extend it this after a daily stand up if needed. That's a possibility. So ideally, I want to do it as a meet after daily stand up. But if the daily stand up is far, then I may want to have a quick exception based meeting where we discuss this technical thing. We really want to understand that is it a capability problem, is it a overall the thing which none of us can solve it, yeah, or is it just a one of the person is unable to solve it. And if this is the case, what are the possible sacrifices we can make? So those all things I can't find out, the team can find it out. And based on that, I need to enable the conversation between stakeholder and the team, because there is a possibility that when we suggest some options, the stakeholder may have a different idea. So I can enable that. So I can look an opportunity where product owner is present when we are exploring this technical challenge. So it brings empathy, and then product owner can take that forward or make the decision on his own. Yeah. So in a simple word, I need to enable team product owner having conversation about this matter in an open setup so that they can find out what they should do best.
Okay, Saket, yeah, got your point. Yeah, I think it was more of me who was making the decision in this particular answer. So it should be rather the team and in collaboration with the end users and stakeholders who would make the decisioning, like how we should go ahead, right?
Yeah, so it empowers them. It looks at multiple possible alternatives with the open mind, because the stakeholder may have some idea, but since you are moving between two people, you may not be able to understand those options, and that can create a suboptimal result. So you want to bring people together so they can find out optimal solutions.
Yeah, sure, got it. And the final question that they asked me, like, uh, what is your preference of a sprint duration? So basically, I just told them, see, I have worked in multiple environments where the sprint duration was between 2 to 4 sprints. Again, it depends on the project. Some projects might be highly dynamic and a lot of uncertainties involved, so they want to have the feedback loops even earlier. So in those cases they might suggest for having a 2 week sprint. The ones which are actually even there we have some kind of agility, but it is not probably that volatile or that kind of uncertainties involved. So on those cases we may have a 3 or 4 sprints, whatever works for the project. But I'm not too sure if this answer was
This
convincing.
is good. Yeah, this is good. Basically, you can start with, typically everybody uses 60% of the people use 2 weeks sprint. So I think that's a good starting point. Yeah, the various surveys talks about 60 to 70% of the teams using 2 weeks sprint, because it is enough to create sense of urgency, at the same time, enough space to produce something meaningful. But depending upon the situation at hand, we need to explore. We need to, as you explained, the situation is the volatility in the requirement. The situation could be the size of the story, size of the work, how much time something takes to have something meaningful demonstration and review. So if you have a very complex thing, probably it takes time to get to a stage where review can happen. So based on that, we can adjust, but that is something team will come up with there. We will see as we go along. But mostly 2 weeks is something which I have worked with, and they work. But if you had a situation where you started with the 2 weeks and moved to 3 weeks, you can bring a little bit explanation of that. In one of the team where we had a situation, like we were always rushing for the closer because of the 2 weeks. So because the first week is little bit just warming up, and second week becomes just a closing one. So we moved to a 3 weeks one, and these are the advantages we got. Yeah. So in case they are interested, you can go till there.
Okay, yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Thank you, Saket. So this was my interview experience, but I have a personal question based on, the work that I've been doing. Like in all the projects, I noticed that some amount of, spillovers would be there. whenever we are trying to close the sprint. There might be various reasons for it, but not going into the reasons. Now, suppose I put a particular story as 5 pointer. I mean, my team puts it as 5 pointer, and one of them is working on it, and they were not able to finish it, but they have done some amount of work on that particular story. Now, when we kind of close the sprint, the velocity doesn't calculate that particular story, right? It will be calculated in the upcoming sprint whenever we are closing that story. But my question is, often my team, has this query that we have that. So what they will do is say, usually what we are doing in a 2 week sprint, based on the capacity that the team has, we kind of try to make sure that the team is not having more than 7 to 8 points, story points. Okay. So now if something of a 5 story point gets spilled over from the previous sprint, some of the team members, they tend to say that I already have a 5 story point, so I am going to take up only three more. But I always feel, as a scrum master, that should not be the case, because 50 to 60% of the work is already done. So that means that 5 pointer story probably no more holds a 5 pointer a complexity anymore. It probably holds a complexity of now two or three, right? So in that case, what do you think will be good? We can consider it in that way, right? Although it is a 5 pointer story, but that
Definitely we
particular
can consider.
sprint,
Yeah.
the person should not get eight, I mean three more, rather he should get another
Yeah.
five more. So this technique is fine, right?
Perfect, perfect. So see, there are few things. So you can remind your team member that it is not about the velocity of current iteration or a current sprint. We also need to worry about our average velocity, which is coming from the previous sprints. If we have lost 5 points in a previous sprint, and if we don't recover some portion of those points in our current sprint, then our average velocity will go down. Yeah. So the mistake which we had in a last sprint, because of which we did not get our credit, we need to do better, utilize that particular work so that we can keep our average velocity high. So we should be targeting more story points in the current iteration because we are coming up with the spillover stories here. And that also makes a mathematical sense. So that could be a one argument you can use to convince your developers and team member to think beyond a current sprint, look at a trend rather than a sprint. Second thing, in general, we talk about velocity driven planning versus commitment driven planning. The general idea of in a current one sprint we will only plan up to 20 story points so that we will do like this is a velocity driven planning. It's a good for long term planning. For example, I'm planning 4 iterations for a release. Yeah. When I'm doing current sprint planning, I need to focus on commitment. What do we feel we can do it rather than what is the total story points? Maybe we can use total story point as a guidance, but if we can do less, we will plan less. If we can do more, we will plan more. Yeah. It's not like we must plan 20 story point and let the things go in a spillover. That's not the idea. So whatever we are planning in a current sprint, we should plan where we believe 90 to 100% case we will achieve it. And that we call it commitment driven planning. So we can use velocity as a guide, but not as a limiting factor. Yeah, so these are the 2 pointers which can help you in creating the right environment for sprint planning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Saket. I think why I asked this question, because team always has ambiguity on this. And I was thinking, sometimes it may be also asked in a interview. So I must give some proper explanation, right, for this particular scenario. So that's why I thought I'll ask you.
Perfect. I think nice connecting, nice, good number of questions, and I hope you got some ideas which can help you in.
Yes, Saket. It really gave me, I mean, I was very upset that, why it did not get through, because most of the answers I felt was fine. But now after talking to you, I mean, yes, my answers were okay, but it could have been better, on certain areas. And that's why I think I got that understanding. So it
So
will help me in.
we need to improve our side, but market is also has its own dynamics. So, for example, if they already made a mind that they want to get a telecom domain guy, and if they have a candidate who has a telecom experience, even after answering remaining questions, we may still not get that opportunity.
Right,
So
right.
that's a possibility. But again, we can do whatever is in our control. If we don't have an experience in a particular domain, we don't have it. What do we do about it? But we focus on other areas. So if the case comes close, then definitely I am there. Yeah. So that's the
Yeah.
idea.
Sure, sure, sure. Actually, in the job description, they did not mention anything specific that they were preferring someone from the telecom domain. And, I just forwarded my resume and the HR themselves called me. It was not that I, went ahead and applied for the job or anything. So, I mean, I did not think that much that telecom may have an impact. But then I tried to, as you said, try to give it a diplomatic answer saying that whichever domain we go, it will always be a learning, and we'll explore new things and ideas which we may use in some other areas in future. So I think, yeah, that was the
Yeah,
point.
that's good. And in the interviews, many a time it also happens the people who are arranging the interview and people who are taking the interview and people who are writing the job description might be different. Yeah. So someone writes it, someone schedules the interview, and someone comes up and takes the interview, and they
Right,
don't know what the other guy was doing.
right, right.
So we need to deal with it as we go along. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time, Saket. It was really good, and I really learned a lot. It's really definitely going to help me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye for now. Yeah.
Bye, bye.